computer. Okay, got it.
Okay.
Sam, start.
You wanna
Sam,
run
go
a
to the-
trial? Make sure it's recording.
Yes, it is recording now.
It is.
Yeah.
Okay, so
Sam, sure. Good morning. Assalamu alaikum. Namaste. Shat Sri Akal. Shalom. All the way I can greet you. Friends, as Sam had said, I had problems with several verses of the Quran, like many of you may have. And during the 90s, when I got into the public, I was tuning into the TV and the radio shows in Dallas, Texas, where I was. And I heard a lot of information. It didn't bother me because that's what I thought too. But later on, when they started giving false information on the TV and the radio, I got interested and I started calling the radio stations and TV stations to correct some of the falsities that were propagated on TV and radio. Many of you from Dallas, Texas know David Gold. He happened to be my tenant. He was the most virulent thing against the Quran and Islam. And he was my tenant. I went to see him to renew his lease. And I asked him, David, why is that a lot of falsities about Quran and Islam's are added to your program while you are telling some truths, but there are a lot of falsities. When I call you, you don't get me on the TV and the radio. I want to correct some of the mistakes you have. David Gold, it is in 1997, I believe. David Gold said, Mike, you came here to increase my renewal. I increase my rent here. And how do I pay that rent? He said, if I tell the truth, your truth, if I take you on the TV and radio and you tell the truth, it will bust my ratings. My ratings go up by creating controversy, telling the falsities. If I keep that up, my ratings go up and I get my more income and I can pay you more rent. And I understood at that time. And at that time, I started my own TV show and my own radio show. And what I did at that time was allowed everyone to give their side of the opinion. We did not cut off anything. Islam, as a Muslim, which I became in 1999, is about free will and free speech. If you cut that, we censor that, we are doing a lot of wrongness. So we opened it up to all people. With that, I will ask Dr. Safi Kaskas to give his opening statement, and then we will go straight into the verses.
Thank you very much, Mike. Hello, everybody. Good to be with you. I hope I will be used to you with my explanations about the Quran today. I want to start by telling you that I'm not a Quran scholar in the classical sense. I'm a Quran translator. I've been working for about 15 years on understanding and translating the Quran. As far as my expertise, I'm a strategist. And when I decided to do the Quran translation, it was post 9/11. I decided to do it because it was the way I will respond to everything that we saw on the media about the Quran that was not right. So I thought someone need to share with the public what I know the Quran to be. And this is why I started doing the translation.
Safi, you may want to unmute. Safi, you want to unmute. Sorry.
Should I repeat what I said?
Yes, please do.
Okay. Hello, everybody again. I hope I will be able to provide you with useful information today. I was trying to tell you that I'm not a Quranic scholar in the classical understanding of that word. I did not graduate from a university that teach Quranic studies. I decided, though, to work on understanding and translating the Quran about 15 years ago. And that was in the post 9/11 period. And my desire to translate the Quran was my strategic response to 9/11. I didn't want to hear on the media the Quran says this and the Quran says that when I know the Quran doesn't say it. Unlike Mike, I've been a committed Muslim since I learned to think, and
I like that.
I stayed there. I went to a Catholic school, so I learned catechism from a very young age. Went to mass every morning with the rest of the students. Learn about Jesus from the time I was 5 years old, probably, and I'm still learning about Jesus. So I consider myself a Jesus follower and a Quran follower. And I speak about this every day on my page on Facebook. So the Quran translation that I started 15 years ago is not the same as the one that I'm working on today. The Quran evolves, its meaning evolves. The text is fixed. The meaning open itself to those who are seeking a meaning as they strive to understand more and better. You know, this is for this reason, I believe that the commentaries that we inherited from the very famous commentators were great during their time, but today they're of little use for us. We're in the 21st century, and 1,000 years ago, we had Ibn Kathir dying on us. His translation, his commentary was fantastic during his time, but the world kept moving forward. We kept learning new sciences, expanding new sciences, while our understanding of the Quran stayed constant. So a lot of time when you're discussing socio-political issues with a Muslim, you need to keep that in the background of your mind, because he needs to move forward from what he understands the Quran telling him based on those classical commentators to today's world. So for me, although I published my translation 5 years ago, I'm still working on the translation. In fact, I have a group of people working with me, scientists and scholars. The scientists, ex-NASA people, pure physics, pure math, important people that have a lifetime experience in pure sciences. They're working with me along with Quranic scholars. We're bringing Quranic scholars on board also, because I don't want people to think that what I'm saying about the Quran is my personal opinion. I have no vested interest in pushing one opinion or the other. I simply want to understand, and I want to share my understanding with everybody else. So this is where we are right now. I'm still working on the translation. I have more people working with me on the translation. Never read a translation and say the Quran says this or the Quran says that. The translation is always, with no exception, the understanding of the translator at the time he did the translation. So no translation has any holiness as far as I'm concerned. There's simply the translator's understanding of the Quran at the time he did the translation. I think with this, I will stop and turn it to you, Mike.
I think that's a very good statement of integrity. I think that is one of the things that we need to remember, that there are many translations. There are about 50 translations, about 50 interpretations. It is the author's interpretation and author's translation. It is not the Quran. So a few things that I want to mention is, uh, if some of you are sending me questions, which is good, and I'm glad Rajaullah Qureshi sent me about 9 to 10 questions. We have many questions, and we have many scholars here that have joined. Imaduddin is joined, and Khwaja Noman Anwar has joined. These people are very active on the networks in the international television. and I'm so glad. Amina, Adi, please unmute yourselves. I got your questions. We will get to your questions at 1 o'clock. And this will be published on YouTube. All you have to go to is YouTube and type in Center for Pluralism, and you get this. And I would recommend people to read Dr. Safi's Quran translation and Muhammad Asad's translation. There are 50 translations. Of them, 5 are deadly wrong. They are very wrong translations. But Muhammad Asad and Safi Kaskas translations are by far the best. And Dr.
Thank you.
Lale Bakhtiar, I want to add that. And one of the things I would ask some of the people that are going to ask the questions is, any question you have, look at if you have the Quran in front of you, open up and read 3 verses before, 3 verses after. And the other thing I would ask you is, if you go to the website, Islam Awakened, islamawakened.com, and it gives all the verses, 50 different translations of everyone. Dr. Kaskas' translation is also there.
And
And there are a
Muhammad
lot
Asad.
of false information uh, posters being sent to every one of us. It is our duty, whoever is listening here, it is our duty to correct the mistakes. These mistakes cause people pain, and they misunderstand others, and they have constantly intention. Truth liberates us, it frees us from the tensions. And all of our events, this is part of the pluralism politics and pluralism religion, pluralism in society. These are our programs. You can go to centerforpluralism.com/workshops. All our future events are listed there. If it is Sunday, it is pluralism. 12 to 1:30 every Sunday, we have a different program on pluralism in religion, society, gender, and different events. So now let's dive into the verse. The first verse I have received from somebody, and also the list that was sent by Dr. Muhammad Rajaullah Qureshi and some others is, beat your wife if she does not listen to you. And that is the verse 434. Beat your wife if she does not listen to you. This is a very difficult verse for Muslim women also, as for others. Dr. Safi, you go first, and then I will address what I know. And we will give a chance to Dr. Khwaja Nauman on what he has studied that too.
Yes. Let me start by reading my translation of the verse. It says, husbands have charge of their wives with the wealth God has given to some over others, and with what they spend out of their wealth. Righteous wives are truly devout, and they guard what God has ordained them to guard in their husband's absence. If you have reason to fear ill will from your wife, remind them of the teachings of God. Then ignore them when you go to bed. Then depart away from them. If they obey you, do not seek to harm them. God is most high and great. As you know, I don't see any beating here. If you're referring to the word in Arabic that says فَضْرِبُوهُنَّ, daraba is an Arabic word that means many things. It doesn't mean one thing. Daraba fil ard means took a journey to somewhere. So فَضْرِبُوهُنَّ, as far as I'm concerned, my own understanding, and I had to search a lot before I translated this verse. To me, it means leave the house. Leave the house, serve a major function. It tells her parents and your parents that you have a conflict, so they can interfere, as the Quran says in other verses, in order to bring peace again to the house, you know. So this is as far as فَضْرِبُوهُنَّ is concerned. Now, when we finish talking about this, I have a comment about الرجال. الرجال does not necessarily mean the male husbands. When nisa doesn't necessarily mean in Arabic the female wife. God is talking in this verse about those who spend their money for the household. It could be a woman spending her money for the household. So the verse will be talking about the husband, not about the wife. So these are the ways to think out of the box in the 21st century about what the Quran is truly telling us. I can be right, I can be wrong, but at least we're raising the issues so we can discuss them. It's not 100% man against woman. It's those who has the money and spending on the house versus those who are receiving the money and taking care of the household. If the one receiving the money is not going along with the one who's spending the money, there are remedies described here. And the last one is not to beat them up, because if you beat them up, they can call the police and send you to jail. And the Quran doesn't want you to go to jail. And this should be now the case everywhere in the world. And you know, I lived in Saudi Arabia for many years. I think the Saudis care about the way wives feel. They'll bring them great shame for people to know that a husband is beating his wife. So anyway, enough said about this, but this is my take on the issue.
And thank you very much. I think you made a very clear distinction there that God, in God's eyes, everything in the Quran is addressed to men and women at the same time. And
Yes.
God, Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, he said, on the day of accountability, on the day of judgment, or to your own conscience, you are accountable for your actions. Nobody else is responsible for your actions. So he put men and women to be equal. And when you mentioned the interpretation, and that is the interpretation that should be, God's word should be understood correctly. Go ahead.
Now, another point. Let's take the case of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam himself. Who was he working for in the first years after he became a prophet? His employer was his wife Khadija.
Indeed, indeed.
Who was spending the money on the household? Wasn't him, it was her.
Yes.
So turn the verse around and apply it to the man who is not earning the money and the wife who is earning the money, and then you will understand that can apply to both rather than to just one.
That is the most beautiful understanding of that verse. And I think that's what God means when God treats everyone equal. That interpretation that you have shown makes very much a lot of sense. And this thing about beating the women, Dr. Lale Bakhtiar, she did quite extensive research, and the word daraba you mentioned, it is used about 27 times in the Quran. And
Yes.
of the 27 times, only 23 times it means separation. It doesn't mean beating.
Yes.
And
Yes.
thank you for that correction.
Sure.
Let's go to the next verse, Dr. Safi. Let me pull it up. If anyone, kill the infidels wherever you find them. This is a very troublesome verse for many people. And in fact, in the Quran, there are some justice verses, and there is a definite formula in the Quran about the justice verses. And let me share those, the formula that I have written up in the book, the American Muslim Agenda. If the bad guys, the Quran, there is a formula, definite formula, how the justice verses are treated. If the bad guys pull over their truck in front of your house, you tell them to back off. If the bad guys keep coming at you, you ask them to back off. If the bad guys jumped on you and want to throw you out of your own home, then you act and chase them. And if the bad guys run and hide behind the bushes, you find them wherever they are. And this is normal what happens in an American home. If in a suburban American home, the guy has got a gun, the owner, if someone chases and comes them, he gives them warning. Then he can shoot the guy, kill them wherever he finds them, and he would not be responsible. What Quran does in this particular justice verse is, if those bad guys come to you begging forgiveness and saying that they repent their mistake, they will not repeat the mistake, the Quran gives you the choice to forgive them and extend your friendship with them and not be aggressive towards them. This is one aspect of the Quran that is not anywhere else, not even in our laws, where you treat the criminal with respect if they seek forgiveness and repentance. So, your take on the Quran, on the justice word, kill the infidels wherever you find them. Dr. Safi Kaskas?
Yes, when the Quran, see, there is something that bothers me that we keep talking about and it's like going over it. Who is the Quran addressing here when he says, fight whoever we need to fight? Who is the Quran addressing here? Is he addressing Ghouse or addressing Safi Kaskas as individuals?
No.
No. The Quran is addressing a state. The Muslims had a young states. That young states was basically people who left the city of Mecca and were not allowed to take their wealth with them and migrated to the city of Medina, or the city that became Medina. Now, they had the right to fight from day one because they needed to recover their wealth that they left over there and were prevented from taking it. But they didn't do that. They only fought as a state after they received an order, a permission to fight from God as a revelation in the Quran. This is number one. Number two.
Fight those who oppose you, not those who...
Yeah, just 1 second. You only fight in self-defense. You're not allowed to initiate a war. I'm going to read my translation and you will see these points one by one. So first of all, no individual, this is to me is very important. I want to make it crystal clear. No individual has the right to declare war against anybody on their own. You have to have a state that is willing to be run by the Quran, and the leader of that states is calling everybody to fight. Unless we have that, all these verses we're talking about become historic with no value for today. So first you have to have a state where Muslims are a majority, willing to be run, for their life to be run by the Quran, and their leader, the leadership, whether it's one person, 10 people, doesn't matter. The leadership decide to engage in a war and call on everybody to get ready. Only then that self-defense war become valid. Otherwise, all these verses become historic and need to be put aside. I personally do not agree that the stories about what happened in the 7th century apply to our life today, except as a lesson to learn from. We're not bound by following stories about any of the lives of any prophet. We learn from them. We don't have to abide by them because they happen at a certain time in the past with certain circumstances that might exist now, might not exist. What is needed today is for people who wants to be governed by the Quran to get their representative to rethink about time and place that they're living in. I mean, Muslims living in India, if they had a state still, they will have to decide what to do within the circumstances of India. And people who are living in Syria will have to decide what to do within the circumstances of Syria. After this long introduction, let me read the way I translated 2191. It says, fight in God's path against those who fight you, but do not be aggressors. In other words, fight against those who fight you. They have to start the fight. Then you have to respond, but do not be aggressors, for God does not love aggressors. If they start a fight, kill them whenever you find them. That require that they start the fight, and expel them from wherever they expelled you. For oppression is worse than murder. Do not fight them at the holy sanctuary unless they fight you in it. They fight you, kill them. That is the reward of the unbelievers. If they stop, God is forgiving and merciful to all. So this is my translation of this verse and the verses after it. We never read a verse in isolation in the Quran. We always read few verses before and few verses after. I think you heard this from my many times already. I'm repeating it because I want you to know that I adhere to it too. It makes sense. We cannot take a verse or part of a verse in isolation. So anyway, this is my take on that particular verse.
Thank you, Dr. Safi. I think that is I hope it clarifies to many of our people watching us. And I just want to acknowledge a few more scholars. Dr. Ibrahim Sayed has got a very beautiful website, and he's got about 6,000 some articles in thinking rationally about Islam. I appreciate that. And we have many other good scholars out here listening to us, and we appreciate them. Again, friends, you can later, an hour later, you can go to the YouTube and just type in Center for Pluralism, and you will see this recording. And also, as Dr. Safi and I both mentioned, read 3 verses before whatever verse anybody throws at you, whether you're a Muslim, Jew, Hindu, Christian, doesn't matter. If a verse bothers you, the best thing to do is find the truth. The truth is in the Quran. Go to the Quran, go to islamawakened.com, plug in that verse that you saw, and plug in, then read 3 verses before to get the right context, and 3 verses after that, and then you get a clear meaning. And those of you who are wanting to ask questions, we will open up at 1 o'clock, those EST, that is in about 40 minutes, in 21 minutes. Please have the Quran in front of you. I would like you to read 3 verses before and 3 after before you ask that question. And that way you can understand and practice understanding the verses. Dr. Safi, the next verse we have is, don't take them, that is infidels, as your friends. In particular, it is reference to Jews and Christians. Don't take them as your friends. This is a very bothersome verse to most of us. And how do you deal with it? And what is the understanding, your understanding, as you mentioned, what God being the universal God, all of us are his creation. He cannot be a villain to his own creation. God is for all of us. He is not your God or my God or Hindu God. He is God of all of us. And he has got Rahmah, or the mercy to all of us. So Dr. Safi, go ahead.
Well, Michael, to add something to this beautiful introduction that you just gave, actually we have 2 words in the Quran, Rahman and Rahim. They're 2 beautiful names of God. Rahman, I translated, is merciful to all, not compassionate like other translators translated. I translated as the merciful to all, because this is what Rahman means. Rahman is the one whose mercy extends to everybody, the believers, the non-believers, the atheists, the Muslims, the Christians, the Jews, the Hindus, everybody. He's the one that makes the sun rises on us. Indeed. Out of his mercy, it rises on all of us. He is the one that brings the rain to all of us. Out of his mercy, the rain comes to all of us. But Rahim is specific to those who believe in him as their personal God. They worship him, and direct all their worship toward him. So Rahman is for everybody. Rahim is specifically when I'm praying to him. He's Rahim to me personally, and to you personally, and to everyone who is praying to him, worshiping him. A footnote here for everybody, they might find it interesting. Rahman and Rahim have a root, same root. That root is Raham, means the womb of a woman. So when we talk about God as he, and we know he's not masculine, and we're saying he because in the Arabic language, this is how he referred to himself when he did the revelation.
Indeed, Safi, every religion refers to God as he, even though they acknowledge God is genderless.
Genderless. But again, God is giving me indications in the Quran before every chapter of the Quran. We start with Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Ar-Rahman and ar-Rahim have the root Raham. And how can anybody be as merciful as God, and he's comparing himself to a mother's womb?
Please unmute. Whoever is coming on, please unmute.
Let me talk to you now about taking the infidels as friends.
Please unmute all our audience. Please unmute yourselves. It is disturbing. Please unmute.
Mute, not unmute, Mike. Mute them.
Yeah, mute. Please unmute. Dr. Ibrahim Sayed, please unmute. Let me see if I can mute him. I can mute him. Okay.
Okay. Verse 328. Common translation is Muslims must not take the infidels as friend. This is not my translation in my book. My translation reads, the believers should not take unbelievers as protectors. Awliya. The word awliya does not mean friends. It means protectors. Must not take unbelievers as protectors in preference to believers. Anyone who does that will completely isolate himself from God unless they are seeking to protect yourselves from them. God warns you to beware of him. God is our ultimate destination. This is how I translated the verse, and there is no infidels in it. The word infidels is not in the Quran at all. Actually, it was used for the first time when the Crusaders came to the Middle East. They were referring to Muslims as infidels. So we shouldn't adopt that term to refer to anybody. Non-Muslims are not called infidels in the Quran. Allah is so specific. He gave the right description to everyone. So we need to investigate those terms used in the Quran and use the proper translation. And if we don't, anybody that wants to know, I have a glossary of terms everybody can refer to. I spend years trying to work the specific meaning based on Arabic dictionaries and opinion of major mufassirin, commentators, and I don't have any contradiction with them. You know, here, awliya does not mean friends. Awliya means protectors. In our today's situation, suppose Lebanon, where I come from originally, sign a treaty with Israel to fight Syria. Quran is saying this is not good, because they declared enemies to you. They want to take they want to take your water and some of your lands, and you're using them to fight other Muslims. In that sense, I can understand it as far as geopolitics, and it's saying those relationships should be organized. Muslims should not have splits between them. They should try to work all kinds of disagreements and should not take their enemies as protectors against their brothers. That's my take on it.
Indeed, to add beef to what you said, if I have a question about Islam, I'd better ask a Muslim, not a person who is not a Muslim, who has no knowledge of the Quran. So, from that point of view, I would take friends, awliya of a person who knows the Quran, whether it is, even if a Jewish scholar or a Christian scholar knows the Quran, I would take them as my friend because they understand, have the same understanding as I do. And that is my understanding, Dr. Safi.
By the way, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala referred the prophet and the believers to ask those who have knowledge of the people of the books
Precisely.
about events that the prophet Allah was telling the prophet about in the Quran, and they were doubting him. He said, well, you have the people of the book, go ask them if you're doubting what we're saying. So has nothing to do with friendships.
Indeed, indeed.
Please remember the prophet died, and his what do you call the thing that tirs, man? What's tirs? His shield was mortgaged at his Jewish neighbor. So I mean, he didn't go and use sign language to tell him to take the shield and give him some money. They were friends. They were neighbors. And the prophet said that Jibril kept insisting that he treat the neighbor the best way possible until he thought he's going to make him one of the hereditary people, inherit him. So this is no sense when we say don't take Christians and Jews as friends. The verse doesn't mean friend. The verse is not talking about you and I. It's talking about geopolitics, talking about states dealing together. And we need to put it in context.
Indeed.
For God's sake, context is very important. Context is everything. So you and I have hundreds, thousands of Christian and Jewish friends. They're our best friends.
Indeed.
And we're with them in interfaith dialogues. And we have plenty in commonality with them. But we're talking here about states dealing together. We're not talking about individuals. And it doesn't mean friend, it means protectors.
Indeed. So there are, I believe, two of my Jewish friends are also listening. And if you hear this verse in a synagogue or any place else, this video will be uploaded at YouTube, Center for Pluralism. And just share this link with them. I don't want to apologize, but do apologize to my Jewish, Christian, Hindu, and other friends where the Quran has been misinterpreted politically for political reason for some 1400 years. And as we dealt with the first verse, beating women, which has been mistranslated for 1400 years. Thank God we are all correcting those verses now. And those people who interpreted probably from a misogynistic point of view. And that is the same case with Hindu, Jewish, Christian, and all the texts, there were misogynistic interpretations. And thank God all of us are correcting them now.
Mike, we need to call a spade a spade.
Indeed.
Okay. A lot of time, like I said before, we are our worst enemies. We try to put together translations of the Quran and try to spread them for free and spread millions of them around the world when they are basically misrepresenting Islam. And one of these translations is the Noble Quran. The Noble Quran was printed by Saudi Arabia, and millions of copies were spread all over the world.
We're talking about Al-Hilali translation.
Hilali and Khan.
Hilali Khan, yes.
Two of them, Hilali and Khan, Dr. Hilali and Dr. Khan. They were teachers at Medina University. And they did this translation, neglecting all previous translation, like Yusuf Ali, who wasn't a fanatic, or Muhammad Asad, who was very reconciliatory and tried to present a realistic meaning of the Quran. Now, Hilali and Khan was serving basically a Wahhabi ideology. This doesn't apply anymore. Saudi Arabia today is not Wahhabi. That Wahhabi ideology that I lived with for like 20 years, changed in the last 2 or 3 years. They're no longer that. But when the Noble Quran was at the heights of its distribution, they used to send it by the thousands to various mosques in the States.
And if you call the toll-free number, you get a free copy.
We wrote, I personally, I was living there. I wrote people, I went to see people about it, tried to explain to them why it is harmful to Islam. It will not serve Islam and Muslims at all to have such a terrible translation. Like you open it. If I give it to my neighbor, they open it. And in the opening, Al-Fatiha, it talks.
Go to the verse number 6.
Yes, exactly. When I'm praying to Allah to guide me to the right path, unlike those who you're angry with, and it says on the same line, like the Jews who did this, that, and the other. Well, aren't there Muslims who Allah is angry with? Isn't the guy that was establishing Daesh, ISIS, and killing Muslims someone that Allah is angry with? Is Allah angry? How can Allah be angry with all Jews? Allah does not generalize. But this is something that I will comment on when we get to you have a verse coming that
Yes.
I want to comment on that talk about this. But anyway, the Noble Quran is a book, if you want to read, just to read the worst possible translation that is fanatic, Islamocentric, hating everybody else, and thinking that Muslims are the only people that are saved, when Allah says in the Quran that it's up to him who is saved and who is not saved.
Indeed.
Thank you. Sorry,
Indeed.
sorry for the comments.
I'm glad we are having a conversation, Safi. Let me add to that. The State Department brings Muslim scholars from all around the world to visit. And I'm one of the bus stops, where the Muslim scholars from China to Chad and everywhere in between come, and I give them a half a day's talk about the interfaith scene in the United States. And I talk about pluralism. It was amazing. One time I had a group of about 17 Muslims, ministers, scholars from Saudi Arabia, and I presented to them the complete description of what you just described about verse 6 from the Surah Fatiha. And they were completely taken back how it is seen. And I also gave a presentation at the Parliament of World Religions in Melbourne, Australia. And one of the biggest thing I did was, in the huge audience, I asked non-Muslims, anybody, if there is a non-Muslim, to read the verse, see if there is a word Jew or Christian in that verse. And guess who spoke up? I forgot his name. The bishop of Christians from Jerusalem. He said, I read Arabic and I can translate it. And I asked him to read that verse in the Quran. There was the word Jew and Christian was not there, whereas he had translated or inserted, even though in parentheses it was there.
Yes.
So there are many mistranslations, and thank you so much for warning about this. And the best way to handle that is, if some words troubles you, any one of you, whether you're a Jew, Christian, Hindu, or anybody, including Muslims, if a word troubles you, read about 4 different translations, because you can eliminate one wrong translation out of that. And go to islamawaken.com, and every verse has been translation, about 50 different translations.
We can compare them.
Yes.
By the way, Michael, after all the pressure we exerted, they changed that Noble Quran translation. They took away, like the Jews and the Christian, from the top where the verse is mentioned, and put it where it should be, with the comment.
Indeed.
It's a comment. It's not part of the Quran. I mean, I cannot stop them from commenting any way they want. I can stop them from putting their comments with the rest of the verse. So people will be confused, think that this is what the Quran says. It does not say that. Yes.
In fact, I forgot to mention, when the Saudi guests came, I showed to them, and they also worked on correcting the translation coming out of Medina by Hilali and Khan translation. So let's go to the next. Well, by the way, if it is Sunday, it is pluralism. Pluralism events about religions, politics, society, and culture and workplace. That's what we do every Sunday between 12 to 1:30. And this event is going to be listed at the YouTube. Just go to the YouTube and centerforpluralism.com. You will have this in the next 1 or 2 hours logged in. So let's go to the next verse, Dr. Safi, and that is, give tidings, O Muhammad, of a painful doom to those who disbelieve. And this is such a wrong translation propagated by people. I don't know who is propagating it, but this is a wrong translation. Please share your take.
Well, actually, Muhammad does not speak on his own. If you want a verse from the Bible to refer to how Muhammad speaks, is Deuteronomy 18:18. In Deuteronomy 18:18, Moses is praying that God will give the people from among their brethren, that means from among the children of Ishmael, a prophet, and that God will put his word in his mouth. So Muhammad, when he speaks only what God has revealed to him. Now, somewhere in the Quran, and anybody that read the Quran will know this, God reprimanded Muhammad, telling him to deliver what I'm revealing to you. And if you don't deliver what I just revealed to you, you're not delivering the message. And Muhammad's job was not to express his own opinion. God told him many times in the Quran, your job is to deliver the message. So God's opinions here, Muhammad's opinion here does not matter. He can be on his own, telling people one thing or another, but this is not God speaking. It's not what the Quran is saying. What the Quran says usually is the Quran spreads love and understanding among Muslims and non-Muslims. The Quran is probably it's the most ecumenical book in the world. It talks about Jews, about the Christians, talks about Jesus, talks about Moses, and it talks about those Muslims that God gave his final message to. So as far as I'm concerned, I don't know who invented that verse. I don't know where it came from. I don't care to comment on it beyond that, Let's move to something that maybe is more constructive.
Sure. In fact, friends, I just want to caution everybody. There are a lot of images, pictures of several verses of Quran that is being put on the internet all over. And on the top, they say, quote the verse and also the Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim on the top to give authenticity to these false verses. Those verses don't exist, or the verse they have quoted is not what it is. So that needs to be there. Safi, before we go to the questions from the audience, let's address one more thing. There is a lot of violence. Some Muslims, just a few of them in Pakistan, India, and other places, especially in India, just happened recently, when they draw the pictures of Prophet Muhammad or say bad things about Prophet Muhammad, there is a violence committed by Muslims. That is so wrong, because their actions tell that Prophet Muhammad taught them to be violent. Prophet Muhammad is mercy to mankind. And those Muslims who are doing this wrong, going against, destroying the properties, and hating others, creating violence, is not representing Prophet Muhammad's message of mercy. He is mercy to mankind. Show to the world. If somebody draws a bad cartoon of Prophet, show to the world that Prophet Muhammad would pray for them, would not do the violence. So
Yes.
the mistake is made by our fellow Muslims showing violence, which is totally un-Islamic, totally
Yes.
against Prophet Muhammad's teaching.
Yes.
Please add a few things to that, and then we go to the questions.
Michael, I 100% endorse what you just said. I wrote about this and posted in many places. But again, let's look at the issue not from where we are in the United States, not as intellectuals who read a lot and thought about let's talk about the average man in a small village in Pakistan who uh, was educated in a madrasa, very limited, by someone that was paid by Saudi Arabia to teach those children and to teach them a particular ideology. I mean, we need, again, a few minutes ago, I told you to call a spade a spade. I like to say things the way they are. When you teach somebody that if someone try to insult your prophet, kill them, then this is all they're doing. They are practicing what they were taught to do. You and I need to put together some time or train some people to go there and give of our time, of our hearts. If we love these people and want to call them brothers, we need to give them time and teach them why what they're doing is wrong. And they will understand. They are starving for knowledge. I see them every day on my Facebook page. I use my Facebook page as a teaching page. And you have here today among your audience some people who see this every day and comment on it every day. If we want Muslims to behave in a civilized manner, we need to teach them the basics of civilization. What is a civilized behavior and why we should behave this way? We need to teach the Sunnah and the Seerah of the Prophet as it is, not as someone translated it and gave it to them. I mean, Muslims put so much emphasis on the fact that the Prophet married Aisha when she was a child, then they put on major acts of reconciliation that he did, like the Constitution of Medina. They know, everybody knows that he married a child, much more than they know about his major accomplishment in bringing Jews and non-Jews and Christians and Muslims together under one constitution. So those young Muslims don't know better.
Yes.
United States spent $1 trillion already fighting terrorism. Some of that money could have gone to education, and they're not doing that. So next time you talk to the State Department people, please tell them that some of this money will give them a better return if we spend it to build peace rather than go and fight people who have different ideology from us. Same thing goes to Taliban, by the way. Taliban don't know better. They are doing what they were taught to do. We need to teach them better. We need to stop using them as targets. Well, I don't want to go there right now. I want to stay with the Quran. So anyway, so I'm trying to say people don't behave in an irrational way because they're irrational. They behave in a certain way, either because they're pushed to a corner, they were taught to do this, and that's the only way left for them. So you and I need to have special sessions of an hour or so with Pakistanis, with Bengalis, with Afghanis, and talk to them instead of having it only with Americans who really don't need us. They can read on their own.
Absolutely. In
Yeah.
fact, we will, I can do the Urdu translations for Pakistanis and Indians, and we will have a Bengali friend who can do for Bengali and other languages. We will do this, and this is a very important thing we are doing. And I think, my friends, again, once again, thank you for listening to this. This video will be posted on the Center for Pluralism. You go to YouTube, just type in Center for Pluralism. You will see the website. You can see the channel on this one. And if it is Sunday, it is Pluralism. That is on every Sunday, 12 to 1:30. We do programs on pluralism in politics, pluralism in religion, all religions, pluralism in society and different cultures and ethnicity, pluralism at workplace. And this is to help those of us who are tense with fellow human beings, whether whatever religion they are, our ethnicity, if we are tense, we need to find the truth. When we find the truth, it liberates us, it frees us to be open to other friends. And let's open up to the questions. And, uh, and Dr. Ibrahim Sayed is raising a question. And please ask the question, keep it very brief, unmute and ask the question. And thank you, Dr. Ibrahim Sayed. Go ahead.
This is not a question, this is a comment about Daraba.
Keep it brief, please.
Yeah, the Daraba has 7 meanings. The meanings are given in the Quran itself in different contexts. You have different meanings. So the translators, commenters of the Quran have been males, and they have this male chauvinistic attitude, and so did not take the other meanings. The correct meaning, as you have said, is to move away. Actually, in psychology and psychiatry, they use this move away because that's a solution actually for the problem. And also, we have to remember that our Prophet ﷺ never beat a woman, even if she is a servant maid. He had 12 wives and servant maids.
I appreciate your comments on that. Thank you so much for adding strength to what Dr. Safi and we have mentioned. And now let's go to the other question from other comment or question.
Another comment for the friends, you do not take friends, Jews and Christians, is that the Muslims are permitted to eat the meat and the food of the Ahl Kitab, Jews and Christians, and also the Muslims are permitted to marry, the daughters of the Christians and Jews. So if you cannot have friendship, how can you marry their daughters? That's my answer.
I appreciate your comments and thank you so much. And I think we would urge everybody to simply ask questions they have and we can respond to that. Dr. Khwaja Anwar, please. You have to unmute. Oh, no, you have to mute. Sorry.
Okay. My suggestion is to Dr. Kaskas, and I'm going to order his translation from Amazon today.
This is the book, Dr. Anwar.
Great. So my suggestion is many people will read the Quran, especially non-Muslims, for the first and last time. So let's front load. Let's say when verse 328 comes, which is the first time the Jewish, Christian, Muslim friendship is discussed, please put there right away in the footnote, like Muhammad Asad cross references all the time. So like 557 should be there. 557 says, don't take those Jews and Christians as your friends who mock your religion. So then we should put 505 where the marriage, as the brother Ibrahim just mentioned, 4 or 5 of these great verses which shed light upon 328 should be there in the footnote right away.
I think it is a good suggestion. Dr. Safi's translation in the reprint, he probably can add that.
Okay, and one more comment about the cartoons of Prophet Muhammad. And Brother Safi has already addressed part of it. There are 1.5 billion Muslims. There are going to be a few not very well educated, emotional young people like this guy in Paris, 18-year-old. They are going to react. And I'm going to tell you, you know me long enough that I never talk politically correct. I've been on,
You've been on a Hannity show.
Hannity, and now I can't get there because I was politically correct. And his are politically incorrect. And his screener told me while I was holding for 45 minutes last time, he says, Salim, that's my pseudonym, my pen name. I know he doesn't like your questions, so he's not going to get you on. So I hung up after that. Let me tell you this. These cartoons of Prophet Muhammad are made deliberately again, again, and again.
Yes.
And it suits our foreign policy, unfortunately, because in WikiLeaks, it is mentioned that when the Danish people, the Danish newspaper first came with a cartoon and they were writing, Hillary Clinton was our foreign secretary at that time. In WikiLeaks, she's quoted as saying that this is good for our foreign policy, that what is happening. So let's call spade a spade. This war on terror to me is war of terror.
Yes.
Is this terror thrown on Muslims so they can respond with these things so this can continue? The real issue, you know, and I know, is oil and, you know, controlling the policies of those governments.
Well,
So,
thank you, Dr. Anwar. If you have a question, let's ask question. If
thank
not,
you.
we will go to the other.
Yes,
Mike,
go ahead.
Mike, before we go further, please try to give my email to Dr. Khwaja Anwar so we can communicate. Because his suggestion was very good. I would love to stay in touch with him. And maybe he will join also our group of people who are improving the translation.
Yeah, you are the first person who is willing to do that. Otherwise, my suggestions are taken up 10, 15 years later.
Well, I have no personal interest, like I said, you know.
That's great.
What I need to leave should be, it's the only thing I can take with me. If I, you know, stand in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, I need to say I was sincere.
That's right.
Yeah. So anyway, I would love to
thank you very much.
You're welcome.
And we will get Dr. Anwar involved with us. He has been involved with many right-wing people, and he would be a good ally for us. Now let's go to someone else who has got a question.
Sister Amina had a question.
Go ahead.
Sister Amina had a question.
Sister Amina, please go ahead and ask the question.
I did not have a question. I'm listening very.
Keep it brief, please. If you don't mind, keep it brief so we can get more people to ask.
She said she didn't have a question. That's as brief as you can get.
Yes.
Go ahead, please.
That's it. She doesn't have a question.
Okay. Who's got the next question? Okay, let me look at my chat thing is not working. Safi, if you look at the chat and whoever is asking a question, you can respond to them.
Yes. I have Sarah Hussein. Dr. Kaskas, I'm super interested in your honesty, especially without filter and being politically correct. Please share with us what media I can connect to access your knowledge. Dr. Kaskas, sorry, I misspelled your name. Well, you can, spelling my name correctly is not really that good. Yeah, the book is good, but also Facebook is good.
This is the book, Dr. Kaskas.
Yes, thank you. But also my Facebook page is good because I have something new every day on my Facebook. And it's listed under Safi Kaskas. All she has to do is go there. And then she and I can talk directly and we can talk honestly about a lot of things. There is another question. Ignorance allow for inappropriate behavior. I want to contribute to useful, beneficial knowledge. How can I buy a case of each book? Oh, that's
good.
Yeah, that's okay. That's very good. If please send me a message on Messenger, and I will discuss this with you. Yeah, there are ways to do it at a discount. So
and please give Dr. Safi Kaskas time to respond. He gets thousands of messages, and he will get to you, but give him time. And the second book you may want to buy is this book, American Muslim Agenda. It is about how do we build a cohesive America, and it is an interpretation of Islam again.
Okay, do you have any more question or should I ask you a question?
Ask me a question.
Okay. Well, you know,
Dr. Sierra Hussein has got a question.
good. We'll take his question then.
We'll take her question. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
So I am in Surah Maida, and
Yes.
it's related to alcohol. Okay.
Yes.
And it is, let me see, I want to make sure I give you the right verse. 90.
Can you read it? Can you
Yes.
read that verse?
أيها الذين آمنوا إنما الخمر والميسر والأنصاب والأزلام رجز من عمل الشيطان فاجتنبوه لعلكم تفلحون. So now my question is, I'm a Palestinian, and I know of a lot of brothers, especially, that sell, buy, and drink and serve. What does the Quran, does it prohibit? Is it haram? I want to know, what is it in the Quran that tells me this? I'm reading this ayah, and it's telling me the one who's holding it, I may be wrong too, the one who's selling it, the one who's holding it, the one who's drinking it, is going to take you away from Islam. Tell me digest it for me so I can better understand. Thank you.
Dr.
Is it
Kaskas?
290?
590.
It's 90. It's verse
I
90.
know. 590. 590. Is it
Yes.
219?
590.
590. That's what I.
Maida is 5, Surah 5, Maida is 5.
Really, I'm sorry. Verse 5.
Verse 90.
Ayah 90, yes. Surah 5, verse 90.
Yes, I was there. Okay. Surah 5, verse 90. Just give me 1 second and I want to go back to it.
And I know Dr. Mike mentioned to read the before and after, but
Yes.
it's pretty long, Dr. Mike.
Thank you.
Okay. The key word here is اجتنبوه. You need to know the meaning of that word. If you know the meaning of that word, everything else will be clear to you. So 90. I was there and then I lost it again. Sorry. Okay. Believers, intoxicants, gambling, idolatry, and fortune telling are repugnant and evil acts. They are evil acts of Satan. Avoid them so that you may prosper. Now, ijtanibuh, as far as I'm concerned, I translate it as avoid them. If Allah is saying for me to avoid something, He did not say it's haram, He said avoid it. Should I even attempt to disobey Allah and try to use it? Of course not. So I have no disagreement with the fiqh today saying that we should not at all drink or take any intoxicants. So I have nothing new to add here to what everybody knows. But God did not say it's haram. He said to stay away from it, to avoid it completely. So we should just simply obey what Allah is saying. This is as far as I'm concerned. Besides that, I mean, today we know that many articles written by medical people advise against drinking. And we all know of a neighbor or someone who drinks so much, he got in trouble. So I personally don't drink, don't want to drink, don't want to advise people to drink. I follow what Allah is saying and I stay away from it. In a sense, I'm a Southern Baptist.
Thank you,
I
Dr. Safi.
have a question regarding this subject.
Okay.
I have a Muslim friend. Well, I have many Muslim friends here in the United States. I live in Texas. In Garland, Texas here, we passed sales of beer and wine about a decade ago.
Yes.
And a Muslim friend of mine owns a convenience store.
Yes.
And for the first 6 months, he refused to sell alcohol
Yes.
because he said that it was against his faith, because he needs to be a good steward towards society. But then I walked in one day and I saw there was alcohol on the shelves. I didn't say anything to him. But then several years later, I walk in and he hired a young Muslim male, and this Muslim male was questioning him on why he was selling alcohol. And I overheard this conversation, and I stepped in and I mentioned how I remembered from years ago, he wouldn't sell it, but then he started to. And he goes, "Oh, you remember that?" And I said, "Yes, I do." But here's the thing: if he struggles with this till this day, that he's selling alcohol. But if he hadn't, he would have lost his business, because everybody was taking their business elsewhere once beer and wine sales came to be. Because all he had was a small convenience.
What is the question you have?
My question would be, when society forces someone, a Muslim's religious beliefs, where it forces them to pick between their business and income earning ability for their family, or choosing to follow that verse, how do you choose that? I mean, you can't just let your business go bankrupt, can you? And
let Dr. Safi answer that question, Dr. Kaskas.
Well, Sam, was he Palestinian?
I don't know if he was Palestinian. I just know he was Muslim.
Yeah, okay. Let me tell you. Let me go back to Sister Sarah Hussein. I lived in New Orleans for like 14 years. And I was the chairman and the founder, actually, of the Islamic Center there. We had many, many Palestinian members in the community. And they were all in the small grocery store business. And their stores were mainly located in ghettos. And they were selling alcohol. And we debated this issue for a long time. First of all, I agree with your analysis. The guy was struggling with it. And those guys, although they did it for years, they also were struggling with it. They were never doing it with peace of mind. They didn't want to do it, but the business will go down tremendously to their competitor. The business will shift to the competitor if they don't have the wine and the beer, They weren't selling hard liquor. They were selling wine and beer. It's not my job. Truly, it's not my job at all. And I don't do fatwa. I don't try to say this is right and this is wrong, or they should do or they shouldn't do. It's not what I do for a living. What I do for a living is investigate and try to understand better. This particular situation, by the way, in the United States, there is a fiqh council, jurisprudence council, and those people need to be presented with that question. We need to send it to them, and they need to make a decision and let us know, due to the present circumstances in the United States, is there a permission for these guys to sell the soft wine and beer, or is it not allowed? I cannot tell you. All I can tell you is what the Quran says, what I will decide for myself. But I really feel sorry for the owners of these grocery stores. Because they were Palestinian, I feel they were oppressed where they come from. They were under occupation. They came here, they were oppressed in another way. They go out of business if they don't do something that they consider oppressive to their freedom to practice their religion. So I mean, I feel sorry for them. It just wasn't really fair to them. But this is all I can tell you.
No, that's very good
There is a
information, and I
council.
think that's a good question to ask the council.
Yeah.
For the United States, yes, for Muslims here.
Yeah.
Yes.
The council is headed by Dr. Muzammil Siddiqui. Dr. Muzammil Siddiqui, a very nice man whom I've known for the last 30 years, maybe. And they all scholars on that council. You know, you should send them the question.
I definitely will.
Okay.
Thank you.
Friends, if it is Sunday, it is pluralism. Pluralism in politics, pluralism in religion, pluralism in society and culture. And every Sunday between 12 to 1:30, we have program about different issues. And it is about all religions and all politics, Republican as well as Democratic. We are nonpartisan. And thank you for tuning into us. The time is coming to be in about 3 more minutes. And if you raise your hands, we can go for another 15 minutes, or we can stop it at this point. And this will be posted, this video will be posted at, go to YouTube and just type in Center for Pluralism, and you get the video, and you can share it with your friends. And as Dr. Safi Kaskas mentioned, we will have more discussions on these issues. And what the idea is for our non-Muslim friends to know, liberate them from the tensions they have about some misunderstandings about the Quran, and for our Muslim friends to have confidence that Quran is a book of guidance for all humanity. It is not just for Muslims. The Quran is a book to create societies where all of us can live without fear. So that is the whole purpose of the Quran. It is for all humanity. And with that, we will.
Can I have a
comment.
question? I have a question.
Go ahead.
Sorry,
Maim.
somebody.
Go ahead and ask the question, please.
Assalamu alaikum, Dr. Safi. I had a pleasure of meeting you in McLean when you were here a couple of years ago, and I purchased your Quran. Thank you very much for providing this platform for us. A quick question that always comes to me is regarding Surah Baqarah, Ayah 221. It's in regards to marriage to mushrikat until they believe.
Yeah.
I'm not going to go into reading the whole thing, but I believe you know which ayah I'm speaking of.
Yes, I know. And I know what you're going to ask me.
Okay, excellent. You just saved me time. Go ahead, please.
Are Christian or Jewish women allowed to marry, are Muslim girl allowed to marry non-Muslim man? Is that the question?
Bravo, mashallah, mashallah.
Yeah, okay. Yes.
Yes.
And
That's
Dr. Safi, there is a full 6,000 word article. Can a Muslim woman marry a non-Muslim? Is in this book. And Mariam's question is fully 100% addressed in it. And it is up to the individual what they want to do. But from references from the Quran, it is fully addressed in this book.
Can I just add one thing? There is no clear verse in the Quran forbidding a Muslim woman from marrying a non-Muslim man. None exist. So, you know, again, I cannot tell you yes she can or no she cannot, because I will be doing ifta and I'm not a mufti. So all I can tell you is what the Quran says or does not say. The Quran does not address this problem. You better go to Mike's books, and probably he has a full answer to it.
Yes, I will definitely do that. In regards to same-sex intimacy, any thoughts on that? Any ayahs or any thoughts on that, if you would, please?
Why do you ask all these hard questions?
Because I get them and I don't know, so I have to refer them to somebody.
Yeah, you know.
Mariam and Dr. Safi, I just want to add a thing to that. The Quran, the verse says, don't be lewd with your behavior. When it reference to when prophet, I believe the name, forgetting the name, he asked the people who were lewd, men, to get his daughter instead of other men. And I think the question is nudity, as I understand, rather than homosexuality. So, Dr. Kaskas, back to you.
Well, you already answered. And look, that doesn't mean that I am prejudiced against these
Right.
people.
No,
or
I
against,
I fully
yeah,
comprehend that
yeah.
part of it.
But
Yes,
the
I comprehend that.
Quran clearly says this is forbidden. I cannot be involved in it myself. I cannot encourage other people to be involved in it. But in the United States, under our present constitution, if I meet people that have same-sex relationship, I cannot be prejudiced against them. I will have to tolerate them. I will have to live with them peacefully. And they're
Right.
included, they will be included in the pluralism that Mike is talking about.
Correct, yes. My last one would be about hijab, because I know that the before Islam, there, Judaism and the culture of that time, casted some of its, the culture basically had influence. So how can we interpret hijab for, I don't want to use contemporary Islam, but it's for now,
No.
for understanding,
For
having a
people
better
living in the
understanding of
here and
hijab.
now. Yes, for people living in the here and now. Look, I always tied many of the issues that some Muslims consider an integral part of the religion. I tied them to time and culture. Look, in the United States, I have two positions on hijab. If we're talking about covering the hair, covering the head and the hair, if that's what you mean by hijab, then I have two positions. First of all, in the post 9/11 era, I felt the need to stand up and be counted. I felt that the need to defend my Islam. I felt the need to present my Quran properly. And like me, there are many Muslim women who decided to wear this on her hair just to show that she's a Muslim.
Right.
It's a political statement. It's a religious statement. It's a cultural statement. It's all these statements together. But she is telling us she's proud of who she is. She's going to challenge everybody else with it. And she's going to do it regardless of the harm she might get because of it. Now, the second position is women who are covering their hair today under the present circumstances and the hatred that's widespread in the United States are endangering their own being. And Islam and the Quran call us in many verses not to throw ourselves in danger, not to cause ourselves to be injured.
Right, because Quran does put value, I mean, it does consider the whole fear aspect of it. So fear is like, if you fear, then you should abstain from even whatever that you have to do that's obligated on you. But I just wanted to see your point of view on that. Thank you. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Maim, for the question.
I'd like to make a comment on
Dr.
that.
Surya.
Michael?
Dr. Surya has got a question. Let's address her question. Surya, go ahead, please ask the question.
Oh, thank you, Mike. It's late. So what I think is culture and religion, there's a strong intersection and there's a lot of confusion. But somehow this culture that we are confused upon and that we say is not Islam is pervasive. For instance, custody laws. In Afghanistan, they just passed a law saying, making it mandatory for women to obey their husbands and have sex with them when they demand it. And that is not Islam, I know that. Then what is more troubling here is the child custody laws, that the custody of the child goes to the father. And this, being a Sri Lankan, this is a highly debated issue even in Sri Lanka. So how did this culture so pervasively penetrate into our Muslim communities?
Dr. Kaskas?
Well, my 2 cents worth on this is during the last 1,000 years, Muslims turned from an empire that was very strong and well organized into fragmented entities all over the place. So the one that was most dominant is the wealthiest. And the wealthiest among those small entities was the one that has petrodollars. And with petrodollars, they spread their own ideology. And their own ideology was patriarchal, basically. And they insisted on a lot of things that used to be women's rights, and now there are less of them. Thank God we're moving away from that, so that the general movement in time and history is back toward reason rather than toward fanatism.
Thank you.
Friends, thank you, Soraya. Friends,
That movement, doctor, has to be very robust and it has to move forward, you know, because in Sri Lanka, we are even debating whether a woman can be a qazi, a judge. It is really bad. The situation is very bad. Yes,
very bad, very bad.
thank you, Soraya. Thank you, Dr. Kaskas. Friends, our program is about the Quranic verses that have myths, and we are busting those myths. At the beginning of the program, in the first hour, we did about 10 verses that was presented to us by you, by the audience. And we addressed those issues, and then we asked open questions from the public, and we have answered. And looks like we still got the same number of people who will be happy to answer some of the other questions. And if it is Sunday, it is pluralism. Pluralism events in society, religion, politics, and culture. If anybody has got a question, please raise your hand and just ask very briefly the question so we can address it. Sam Madden has a question.
Yes, getting back to the hijab. It's my understanding from my studies that the hijab was reserved only for Muhammad's wives to distinguish them from other women. Is that true or false?
My opinion, it is true. My opinion is in today's world, the president's wife ride in a car with smoked windows and maybe unmarked. So people would not recognize who that is and won't harm her. So the same thing applied during that time.
It's a great analogy.
Well, I mean, this is the way it is. So, but later we moved to another stage where slave girls were uncovered and free women were covered to distinguish the free from the slave. Mind you, during the life of the Prophet, the movement was to free all slaves. After he died, a few years later, Islamic State became an empire. And all these great values were starting to slow down, you know, with conquest and expansion. By the way, there is nothing in the Quran that says we have to go to Armenia, for instance, and conquer Armenia. We said in the beginning of this particular session that war is permitted only for self-defense. And if Armenia did not threaten the Muslim state at that time, why should Muslims go over there? They cannot tell me they went over there to spread Islam, because you cannot spread Islam by force. La ikraha fi din. You cannot force people to become Muslims. It doesn't count. Besides that, this idea of let's convert the rest of the world, it's a childish idea. It's immature idea. You should be the example of a Muslim, and if people are impressed with what you do, they will ask you about it. But to go to them and try to tell them you need to be a Muslim, otherwise you will go to hell, I mean, I don't go for this. This is not my understanding of Islam. Can I tell you now my favorite verse in pluralism? It addresses all this. It says, to each of you, we have assigned a law and a way of life. If God had wanted, he could have made you a single community, but instead, he is testing you using what he has revealed to you. So be forward with all that is good. You will all return to God, and he will clarify these matters about which you have deferred. 5:48 is the verse, and it's my favorite verse in pluralism. So,
indeed. And the
yes.
other favorite verse is the where God says, I have created all of you from Adam and Eve, and I have spread you into different nations, tribes, and communities, and by extension, religions, as he has
Yes.
acknowledged about religions.
Yes.
Then he
Yes.
says at the end, God says, the best one among you is the one who knows. And this program is about understanding each other so we
Yeah.
can respect each other and live in peace without tensions. We have
Yes.
tensions with the Jews have tensions with Muslims, or Christians have tensions with Hindus. Is because we don't know each other. If we sit down and have a conversation, and that's what the Quran says, when we have that conversation, it will go away. And Alia Khan is mentioning it is the Nia in the chat. It is the Nia that counts. Yes, it is very much Nia. Any other question, please? Dr. Ibrahim said, make your question brief.
Yes, regarding the question of Muslim girls marrying non-Muslims, the Quran actually uses the word mushrikeen. Mushrikeen means idol worshippers, not Ahl Kitab people.
You're right.
Specifically
You're right.
addressing to the mushrikeen means idol worshippers.
Yes.
So
yes,
they can
yes.
marry Ahl Kitab people or non-mushrikeen. That's the point. And nobody has given this meaning.
You're
Agree.
right.
Agree.
Can I
You're
make
right.
a comment on that, please?
And also regarding the alcohol, the selling and transportation of alcohol is mentioned only in the hadith, not in the Quran.
That's right.
Many things which are in the hadith, which are unreliable. The hadith I cannot rely because it was written 250 years later. It's not like the Quran. It doesn't have the value of the equal to the Quran. So there are so many things.
I need to update in my book the article I wrote, Can a Muslim woman marry a non-Muslim?
Yeah.
I need to update the meaning of mushrikeen that you just presented. I like
Exactly.
that.
I have so many things. I need a session for hijab, for riba, for growing the beard. Give me one session, 45 minutes or 1.5 hours.
We will do one more session. We will set the programs. If you go to centerforpluralism.com,
Yeah.
and there is a tab called workshop. If
Yeah.
you click the workshop, we will give all the future listings.
Okay.
In January, we will have several programs with Dr. Kaskas, and
Okay.
we will have you join about these particular issues.
Yeah,
So our fellow Muslim can be confident about the Quran. Quran is a book of guidance. It is to create societies where all of us can live in harmony. And that is the purpose of Quran. And we will have these sessions in the future. Thank you very much. Dr.
I have a very quick question on that. So mushrikeen is Jew people of the book. Muslim men can marry.
No.
Can you clarify, please? Because
the Hindus are the mushrikeen. Anybody who worships the idol is a mushrik. Idol worshipper.
So women cannot marry the idol worshipper?
Correct. That's what the Quran says.
Okay. So
let me add to that, Suraya and Ibrahim said, Dr. Sayed, the major thing, God wants harmony among people. God loves people to be married. God wants people to live in harmony, and compatibility is the key. If you are compatible with whoever you are marrying, you will have a very smooth sail in the marriage. That is the bottom line of what God is saying.
No,
and
but
idol worshiper, let me add on my point. If an idol worshiper is compatible with you, you can live with him in harmony. It should be all right. That is my point of view. That is not the Quran's point of view.
Yeah, so the Quran's point of view is a challenge. Now, I'm from Sri Lanka. We are a minority Muslims. And the love jihad issue that's coming up in India. So when the Muslim men demand that the Sinhalese woman convert, And that is a huge issue in Sri Lanka. That's dividing the ethnic harmony between the communities. So how can we address this in a contextual way? What you said should prevail, Mike. But
let me address that. The most important thing in the Islam is there is no compulsion in Islam. You cannot compel anyone to believe. And I will let Dr. Safi answer from there. Dr. Kaskas.
Yeah, you're correct. I mean, I don't have anything to add here. I mean, we talked about this. I don't know. We need maybe for certain areas with certain issues like Sri Lanka. By the way, I've been to Sri Lanka.
oh,
And,
fantastic.
yes, and I love Sri Lanka. I have friends there. We need maybe, if you want, you can send me questions and I will be glad to answer them. Again, you need to use Messenger to send me the questions. You'll find me under Safi Kaskas, and I will be glad to research and give you results instead of just shooting out of the top of my head, you know, because you're asking questions that require fatwa, that require, you know, someone to say do and don't. And I don't do that, but I will ask, I will research it, and I will send you answers.
Thank you.
We have a question from Sabah. Dr. Syed, just a second.
Yes.
Sabah has asked this question a few times. Sabah, please go ahead and ask the question.
Assalamu alaikum. Yeah, I know it's a kind of a long question, but it wasn't addressed so far. But basically, I was trying to understand this whole issue about the women who the right hand possesses is mentioned many times in the Quran. In terms of, so it seems like it's slave women, if I understand correctly. But I was trying to understand as much as you can comment about why this is so. I know you said you're not going into necessarily understanding, but if you can even comment on that, because to me, and to many people who, non-Muslims who have brought this up to me, it seems like it's not just that you can have intimate relations within the confines of the sacred institute of marriage, which is sacred, which is a agreement, which is a covenant. Marriage has all kinds of rights, but outside of marriage, it sounds like there are these exceptions where you can have intimate relations with these women who are slaves, who the right hand possesses, and they will not have the same rights as somebody who's married. So I was trying to understand that, and I provided some verses, Surah Nisa, verse 24. There's the
What does the verse read?
ayah 33. There's multiple ayahs.
Can you just read one verse?
Okay, so
in
one
English
of them,
translation.
sure. One of them says, from Surah Nisa, all married women are forbidden to you, save those that are captives, whom your right hand possesses. It is the decree of Allah for you. Lawful unto you are all beyond those mentioned, so that you can seek with them your wealth in honest wedlock, not debauchery. And those of whom ye seek content, give them their portions as a duty. And there is no sin for you in what you do by mutual agreement. But again, like, I don't know how can there be mutual agreement if they're slaves, because they're not equals. And this is mentioned many, many times about the right hand possesses. So I just wanted to understand, how can we allow for intimacy outside of marriage?
Thank you so much for the question, Sabah. We got a few more people asking you questions. The next person would be Alia, and after that, Ibrahim Said and Dr. Khwaja Anwar. Sabah, Dr. Safi, go ahead, please.
Yes, before I answer the question, I need to remind you that I'm in Dubai, and it is 10:50 in the evening in Dubai. So you're sitting in Washington, and that's different. Let me talk about the issue. This is a very important issue that the sister just raised. ما ملكت أيمانكم. This term, ما ملكت أيمانكم, is not easy to translate, was not easy to translate. And it's not clear to the major commentators, mufassirin. It's not clear to them. So they were confused about it. And then they went with what was dominant during the time of the Prophet and a few years later, the first 200 years, and went by that. Today, the term means specifically those who are working for you. It's not necessarily slaves. If we have 10,000 people, men and women, working for a corporation, those people are owned by the right hand of that corporation. You're not allowed, the chairman of the board of that corporation is not allowed to have intimate relationship with any of the women or the men that are working for him. What the Quran is telling you in the verse you read, the Quran is telling you, you see, the confusion comes because we think that Muslims can marry poor women. According to the Quran, and I'll get your references later, and we can do a session on this later. A Muslim can marry one time. He will have one wife, but he can have agreement with 3 others if they are mothers of orphans. But for women working for him or women that he supports, he can have an agreement with between 2 adults, it's consent with an agreement written between them. And this is not a marriage, it's a contractual relationship. It is in the Quran, whether you like it or not is up to you, but it's there.
Alia Khan, your question, please.
Welcome everyone. This is really great discussion. Thank you for putting this together. So some of the ladies here, they belong to a sisters group that I'm part of also, and they're participating here because you know, I told them about this program. So it's Saba here, Mariam here, and also Sarah here. Thank you guys for participating. I really appreciate it. So I wanted to go back to the marriage question, you know, that was being discussed, and just want to kind of sum up what was discussed and the advice that was given, and ask, like, do I understand it correctly? Okay, because there were some different ideas presented here. So how I have understood it from listening to everyone is that ayah that says, you know, you can marry the Ahle Kitab, right? And it addresses the men in that. But then the majority of the ayahs in the Quran, like, you know, whether they're addressing men or women, mostly they apply to both, right? So are you guys are saying that let's assume that this ayah also applies to both of them, both applies to men and applies to women, and both therefore can marry Ahle Kitab, but both cannot marry Mushrikeen, because the word it was identified at the end, can, you know, it doesn't really mean Ahle Kitab, because Ahle Kitab are not Mushrikeens. Mushrikeens are the ones who worship the idols. So did I understand properly everything that was discussed? Is this correct?
Dr. I mean, the most
Why
important
don't you
thing
let
is the
Brother
most
Ibrahim Sayyid answer, because that was he has his hand raised and he's the one that answered. Go ahead, Brother Ibrahim.
You see, in regard to the men marrying women, the Quran says the men can marry Ahle Kitab. With regard to women marrying men, it says do not marry the Mushrikeen, which is idol worshippers. So the Ahle Kitab, it doesn't come under, they are not, the Mushrikeen are not Ahle Kitab, number one. Number two, the right hand possessors is the word called captives. The word captives is used when the Muslims conquered the whole city or country. Then each one had the wealth and the men and women, and then the women became the captives. And even then, that's only applicable at that time, not this time. We do not have any captives. Now we have servant maids. So you cannot have intimate relations with a servant maid. You have to have the marriage. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says zina is haram. And also there's a punishment, lashes. So for the zina, there is a punishment. and you cannot do zina. So there are a lot of different contexts, times, and places we have to understand. It is not applicable to all times and all places. So that's the point. And also it says, do not raise your voice above the prophet. Now there's no prophet now. That ayah doesn't apply now. So there are many ayat which does not apply now. So that's the thing.
Let me add to that, Dr. Ibrahim Sayed. Mushrikeen, besides using the word idolaters, that is an interpretation.
Yeah.
Mushrikeen is someone who believes God is not one, but God is many, and they worship to different gods. That's what mushrikeen is, more than idol worshippers.
Polytheism.
Hindu can be believer in one single God too, and so are Sikhs, so are Baha'is. So the word mushrikeen is somebody who mixes God with other things, not necessarily idolaters.
No, polytheism, that may be a word, polytheism. I don't know what the word for Arabic is. Polytheism.
Yes.
Polytheism is.
And Dr. Kaskas, you want to share a point?
No, thank you.
Friends, it's about 2 o'clock. We've got 3 more minutes left. I just want to thank everyone who has joined. And this video will be at YouTube. All you have to do is go to YouTube and plug in Center for Pluralism, and you will get this video. Hopefully, we will have posted this within the next 1 hour so that you can share that with others. And as Dr. Safi Kaskas suggested earlier, we have many issues for Muslims to be confident about Islam and for non-Muslims to remove the tensions and questions and doubts they have. This is for all people. We will set a series of programs, and we will include Dr. Ibrahim Sayed and Dr. Noman Anwar and a few others to join as panelists and talk about these issues. All of these events will be posted after consulting with the time limits of Dr. Kaskas. And it will be, if you go to Center for Pluralism website, centerforpluralism.com, there is a tab called Workshop. You click that and you see all the future events listed: political, societal, cultural, and also events related with Dr. Kaskas. If it is Sunday, it is pluralism. And one simple advice to all my friends, Muslims and non-Muslims: if there is a verse that troubles you and rightfully troubles you, read 3 verses before and 3 verses after, you get the context. If you just read that verse, like kill the infidels wherever you find them, that is wrong meaning. You have to understand, why do you kill the infidels? As Dr. Safi and Kaskas mentioned, if they're aggressive to you, if they're harassing you, you have a right to do the same to them, not otherwise. So friends, read 3 verses before, 3 verses after. It will take away the tension. It will give you confidence as Muslim. And thank you very much, Dr. Kaskas. You want to say a few conclusion remarks? With that, we will close the program.
I want to thank you, and I want to thank the friends that are sharing with us. I enjoyed being with all of you. I enjoyed your questions, and I will look forward to maybe future sessions where we can answer more questions. And maybe we can later on meet in person somewhere in Washington, D.C. By the way, I will be in Washington, D.C. for all your information in January. Until then, I'm going to be in Dubai. And I totally moved out of Saudi Arabia. So I'm no longer living there. I'm visiting Dubai, and I'll move to Fairfax.
You're free. You're free. Yes. Alhamdulillah.
Alhamdulillah. Free at last.
Thank you very much, friends. With this, we'll Dr. Kaskas' statement, and we welcome him in January here in Washington, D.C. I live in Washington, D.C., and we will set up the programs for all your benefit. And with that, we conclude the program. You want to say the last word, Dr. Kaskas?
No, that's okay. Everybody have safe holidays. By the way, I mean, I don't know if we have any Christians here, but Merry Christmas to everybody.
Yeah, we have
happy holidays, Happy New Year's, and
we also have your Jewish friends. Happy Rosh Hashanah.
Happy Rosh Hashanah, of course. I mean, you see, our Jewish friends and our Muslim friends almost have the same religion. I mean, come on. So we celebrate almost the same holidays and the same everything.
Indeed.
So yes. So have a good holidays.
Thank you. Assalamu
you.
alaikum. I
Alaikum
God
salam.
bless you. God bless America.
Salam.
God bless every
Salam.
human being.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Thank you, Dr. Kirmani. Good to see you there. Asim, good to see you. Thank you, Sam.
Thank you, Mike.
Kirmani, Nadeem Kirmani, doctor, you want to join in a panel as a panelist next time? You have to mute yourselves to speak. Dr. Kirmani, I don't know if you are still there. Okay, we move on. We close the event.
Okay, Mike.
Yes.
I just wanted to stay, just talk for a couple minutes or a couple seconds, because I kept seeing up on the screen for people to repeat the website Center for Pluralism. So maybe in our future sessions, you could have like a sign in the back, centerforpluralism.com.
It is in the back. It's way in the back.
Yeah, but you can't really see like the whole website name, you know.
Our sister, I think Alia just left, and Alia is going to work on that to put the logo or the website name all the times. Thank you. It's a good suggestion.
Okay. Do you have any suggestions for me?
I think we need to practice this some more so I can turn the management of the screen while I'm discussing to you. And so we may ask somebody who is technically qualified to help us guide through the website.
Okay, and in the meantime, I'll also see what I can do from my end as far as practicing, and then we'll get together and go from there.
Nadeem Kirmani, I think you want to say something. You have to mute yourselves to say. Nadeem, are you getting our message? I am not sure. And we have Amina Adi and Asim left. If you guys want to say a few words, we will take them. You have to mute yourselves. I guess they didn't hear. Let's close it, Sam. Thank you very much, all of you. Oh, okay. Go ahead, Nadeem. Go ahead and say something.
They said I'm done.
Oh,
I'm done.
Okay. We'll close the event. Thank you, Sam.
Okay, Mike. Bye.
Goodbye and have a good day. Good holidays. End the program and meeting for